Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 25. Destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 3. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 26. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priest, and counsel from the ancients. In the news, from the Bloomberg, a tsunami of shutoffs, 20 million U.S. homes are behind on energy bills. Surging electricity prices spur worst ever crisis in late utility payments. In other news, from the Press TV, U.S. military actions internationally pose a risk of nuclear war. The Russian embassy in the U.S. has warned that Washington's behavior on the world stage risks direct conflict between the nuclear states. Shalom. All praises, blessings, glories, and honors be unto Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim Racha Kodash. Double honors to my elder apostles and bishop elders of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth, as well of men of like mind. Shalom wa chasad, which means peace and mercy to the elect of the nation of Israel. Home of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners of the seed line of our forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom are scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great, and abroad. And to you I say Shalom and Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Ratazah. This lesson is edifying. And what we are seeing now is a new arms race, which of course the Russian Federation doesn't want, but the United States keeps pursuing and keeps pushing ahead. Christopher Lally, political analysis and researcher. The message that Washington is sending by testing a nuclear-capable ICBM amid ongoing tensions between the U.S. and other global powers is anything but friendly and could lead to unprecedented results. Unpredictable results. The demonstration of America's nuclear power comes amid notable global issues such as Russia's war in Ukraine, as well as rising tension between China and Taiwan. Therefore, it will only increase the possibility of conflict, which is why the U.S. claims to be preventing a nuclear fiasco, but the facts suggest the opposite. The U.S. has over 5,400 nuclear warheads and has recently withdrawn from two key arms control agreements: 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, which bans certain classes of land-based missiles, and the 1992 Treaty on Open Skies, which allow for surveillance flights over each other's territories. In addition, Washington habitually makes unfounded accusations against countries whose worldviews do not coincide with the American vision, or the American version rather, Iran has reiterated that its nuclear program was for purely peaceful purposes and that Tehran had no interest in developing nuclear weapons, in spite of the U.S.-led commotion created over its nuclear program. However, the U.S. has leveled inhumane sanctions against Iran to dismantle the country's peaceful nuclear program, a goal that has never come to pass. I believe, first and foremost, that as many commenters have mentioned, or commentators, however you pronounce it, have mentioned over the past few decades, that the United States is the number one rogue nation What we see here with the recent tests of intercontinental ballistic missiles in the past 24 hours by the United States Air Force is that the United States continues to pursue a path that is reckless, that is dangerous, that continues escalations and provocations not only against Russia, against China, against the Islamic Republic of Iran, against Cuba, Venezuela, against many countries. Christopher Halili, political analysis researcher. Washington continues to stoke instability across the globe, and its sanctions show no sign of good faith. It's high time the U.S. has stopped its belligerent moves in order to avoid further crisis in the world. And so these different nations, such as Russia, China, Iran, are all blaming America for destabilizing the globe and for purposefully pushing for global nuclear conflicts between these nuclear states, such as Russia and China. Okay? And all these things are all a part of biblical prophecy in respect to wars and rumors of wars. For the Lord said that we ought to see that we be not troubled before the end is not yet. Why? Because the RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast, must first be mandated globally before the third woe, which cometh quickly, can happen. Okay, so as far as wars and rumors of wars go, these things will only continue to build up and frequently happen as we further approach the end of this man's kingdom. Now, this concludes the article. Now, in other news from the Bloomberg, now I'll only read 5 paragraphs, as this is quite a lengthy article. This article reads, a tsunami of shutoffs. 20 million U.S. homes are behind in energy bills. Surging electricity prices spur worst ever crisis in late utility payments. And so a total of roughly 17, which is shy of 18 billion U.S. households collectively are overdue on their utility balance. Okay? Adrini Nice woke up early in the morning of July the 25th to news she'd be dreading. The power company, Zizil Energy Inc., had shut off the electricity to the small Minneapolis apartment she shares with her teenage son, just as a heat wave was bearing down on the city. Nice had been struggling financially ever since the pandemic hit, racking up more than $3,000 in past due utility bills. The warnings she'd gotten on her monthly statement, final notice, scrawled in big, bold letters, had prepared her to some degree, but it was still jarring to find the fridge dark and the air conditioner silent. With temperatures set to reach 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is equivalent to 35 degrees Celsius in the coming days, she needed the power back on, and fast. The Nice household is one of some 20 million across the country, about 1 in 6 American homes that have fallen behind on their utility bills. It is according to the National Energy Assistance Director Association, NIDA, the worst crisis the group has ever documented. Underpinning those numbers is a blistering surge in electricity prices, propelled by the soaring cost of natural gas. So not only are people facing the risk of power outages that will come in waves, but they're also continuously facing high costs in gas prices, and not just in gas prices, but also in their rents, because that's also been another thing that's been affecting people greatly over the past months due to inflation, which by definition, again, is the general increase in the goods, or the general increase of goods and services due to the expansion of money supply within an economy. Okay, the power bill crisis is even more acute in Europe, where the spike in natural gas prices has been far greater in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. policymakers there have sprung into action, throwing billions of euros in aid at struggling families to help them pay bills. And also, they've also been uh, laundering money, and that's the word I was looking for. They've also been laundering money through the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In fact, today it's been reported that Joe Biden is going to uh, give Ukraine $3 billion more in aid. Okay, all that money that they've been giving Ukraine, and still Ukraine really hasn't made any so-called progress in their war against Russia to date. And it's been 6 months already. It says there's been no meaningful talk of doing anything on a similar scale in the U.S., where the hand wringing has been dedicated, as always, to the gratification of gasoline prices at the pump. So the reason why things haven't, immediately hit the U.S. over here like that is because, people are still being pacified, so to speak, for the lack of words, in preparation for when they actually do make their move over here in a more drastic scale. Because America is a consumer-based economy, a consumer-based nation. Okay, this country depends on external imports to thrive. But once those imports are cut off, once access to those things have been cut off, then what's going to happen is that this economy and this country's citizens and the country as a whole will begin to implode. And we're going to start to see men taking things into their own hands, as is written of in the book of 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, which Lord's own will get before we conclude this lesson. It says utility shutoffs can have deadly consequences, though a risk that's becoming more palpable as summer heat shatters records. Already gut punched by soaring prices for just about everything, more and more people are facing a choice among food, housing, and keeping the power on, right? Because inflation has caused the price of food to skyrocket, also housing, and the power. I expect a tsunami of shutoff, says Jinsu, and there will be a tsunami of shutoffs. This is on to say, a senior attorney at the Center for Biological Diversity, which tracks utility disconnections across the U.S. So I'll conclude reading the article here, as I've already read 5 paragraphs. And now let's get to the scriptures and conclude the lesson. Again, this is the book. Well, actually, before I even go there, let's reread this here in Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 25. Destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. So destruction that will soon come will be catastrophic. On all the sinners of the Lord's people would say that the evil shall not overtake nor prevent them. And not only them, but also upon the heathens. Okay? Across the globe, but especially over here in America, Babylon the Great. And they shall seek peace, right? So in times of destruction which cometh, people will attempt to seek peace, and there shall be none. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. Then shall he seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priest, and counsel from the ancients. Right? So they're going to attempt to find the answers as to why all these things are happening, when they will happen, when they are happening. But they won't be able to, because they're false prophets, they're false leaders, which cause them to language, which cause them to fail in judgment themselves, and thus both shall fall into deep ditches of death, despair, and destruction. This is the book of 1 Thessalonians again, chapter 5, verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, so when your president, your governors, your mayors, your local leaders are going to promise you peace and safety, when destruction cometh, as it's on its way, what's going to happen? Then sudden destruction cometh upon them, right? That's when the sudden destruction. So the destruction that cometh will come suddenly, when people are guaranteed, when people are promised peace and safety. Upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape, right? So they're not going to be able to escape judgment that's going to come. Judgment is going to overtake them when it comes. And it's going to happen in many different ways, through plague and pestilences and through other men killing each other. 2nd Ezra chapter 15 verse 14. Woe to the world, woe means destruction to the world, to this rulership of Esau, Edom, and them that dwell therein, because the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. Job chapter 9 verse 24 tells us this. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. What is a sword? A sword is an instrument of cruelty. Who has been given the blessing of the sword? Esau, Edom. Who is the wicked, according to Malachi chapter 1 verse 4, and who is the sword of the heavenly Father Yahweh, according to Psalms chapter 13 verse 17, Okay, brother can put that in the comment section. For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands, right? Guns, machetes, different instruments of cruelty that men will use to kill one another in the times to come, during the times of Jacob's trouble, because the love of many shall wax cold, according to biblical prophecy. Okay, written of in St. Matthew the 24th chapter. For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, race wars, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men. Sedition is what? Unlawful insurrections against lawful authority, against local governments. Okay, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. Why are they going to be invading one another? Because of the lack of bread and great tribulation. And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Men are going to be raping men and women, especially women. Also, all you so-called bad bitches and all that, well, hey, keep that same energy when the Lord brings judgment upon this land. The Lord doesn't give a F about your figure, man, your appealing figure. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. Why? So the cities are going to be troubled because of their pride, And these women, they love to go out in the cities, these different metros. Okay. So and these different major cities, these different major metros are going to be troubled because of the people's pride, especially you women in the world, and even those that know that they're Israelites in the truth, that call themselves being in the truth, but are rather being rebellious. It says, shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. The man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods, take all their victuals, all their food and everything, because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So all these things are going to come very, very soon. And so with that, I will conclude this lesson here. Lord's name was edifying, straight to the point, to the elect. Until the next time, I say Shalom. Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Achakodash, Barakatam. And the Lord's willing until the next. Shalom.